Most men don't notice when they start to fade away. They believe they're building a family, when in reality, they're slowly being erased from themselves. Friends start to disappear. Hobbies are seen as childish. His money stops being his and becomes ours. But strangely, that, ours, is almost always managed by her. This doesn't happen by chance. It's a silent, almost instinctive engineering. The fewer options a man has outside the relationship, the more he dedicates himself to maintaining it. He transforms, step by step, into someone who only exists inside the house. And outside of it, he becomes nobody. This process is so effective, it's Machiavellian, because it doesn't seem violent. On the contrary, he believes he's doing the right thing. That being a good husband, a good father, a good provider, is what makes him a man. But what he doesn't see is that these same values are being used as chains against him. He doesn't fight back because he thinks resisting is selfish. He doesn't complain because he was taught that a real man silently endures everything. And so, his freedom is gradually savored. As if it were a banquet where he himself is the main course. Carl Jung said the most terrifying thing in the world is to accept yourself completely. But perhaps, for the married man, the most terrifying thing is to recognize how much he has been domesticated. The words we use say everything, entering the cage. Even the jokes reveal an unconscious fear. The fear that getting married is burying yourself alive, with flowers on the coffin. And what's even darker, this system not only imprisons the man, but it makes him grateful for it. The old phrase, happy wife, happy life, isn't popular wisdom. It's psychological conditioning. It teaches a man to place her happiness above his own sanity. Peace in the home becomes the compass. And any male discomfort is treated as selfishness. A relationship where one has priority and the other has responsibility. Schopenhauer said that a man is only truly himself when he is alone. But modern marriage is designed to destroy that creative solitude. That individuality that sustains identity. Little by little, he stops being who he is, to become what she needs him to be. But this doesn't happen with a scream. It happens with a whisper. With an, it's okay, just for today. With a, it's fine by me. And when he realizes it, he's no longer the owner of his own schedule. In the beginning, everything seems like a fair trade. She smiles, agrees, desires. Sex is constant. Interests seem shared. And demands are minimal. But this phase is just the seduction ritual of instinct. The woman is doing what her biological programming requires, securing a commitment. And once that is conquered, the game changes. What was once spontaneous becomes a reward. Sex becomes currency. Affection, a scarce resource. His preferences become obstacles. Softness turns into demands. And the man doesn't notice the exact moment when he stopped being desired and started being tested. These changes are not the result of malice. They are the result of an evolutionary script that has existed for millennia. The female body, her mind, her instinct have been molded to capture protection, resources, and stability. And for that, she needs to mold the man. Not as he is, but as she needs him to be. This means gradually eliminating his freedom, replacing it with obligations, routines, and unconditional loyalties. The problem is that this mold crushes what makes a man feel alive. And what's left is a ghost who still pays the bills, but no longer knows why. The truth that almost no man wants to face is this: her love is conditional. It exists as long as you are useful. As long as you provide. As long as you serve. Just become predictable, and you will see that love turn into distance. The numbers don't lie. They are the ones who initiate the vast majority of divorces. Not because they are unhappy, but because they have already extracted everything they could. Because they have already calculated that on the outside, there are better emotional and financial contract terms. And when she decides to leave, the system ensures that you continue to pay for the privilege of being discarded. Division of assets. Shared custody. All designed to keep the man still tied to the structure from which he was expelled. You no longer have access to the family, but you continue to pay for it. And it is at this point that many men break completely. Because it's not just a financial bankruptcy. It's an identity bankruptcy. They were trained to protect. And now they are treated as a threat. But the deepest blow is not the legal one. It's the emotional one. The mind of the married man is reprogrammed to accept that his desires are irrelevant. That his role is to put out emotional fires. To solve crises he didn't create and to silence his own pain to keep the home peaceful. This generates a phenomenon called learned helplessness. He learns that fighting only makes everything worse. That resisting is useless. And then he surrenders. Not out of cowardice, but out of exhaustion. He becomes a survivor in his own home. The cruelest part of this prison is that it comes disguised as honor. Society celebrates the man who fades away in the name of the family. The media portrays him as a hero. Religion calls him virtuous. And his own friends, who are also in chains, repeat the same script. That's just how it is. It's part of the deal. But that, part of the deal, means dissolving in silence. His identity transforms into a social role. He no longer lives. He fulfills a function. He doesn't love. And any attempt to complain becomes a moral crime. After all, he has everything. And here is born what I call domestic Stockholm syndrome. The man starts to defend the structure that consumes him. He believes that sacrifice is synonymous with love. That discomfort is proof of maturity. That saying no is a lack of character. He trades freedom for obedience. He trades desire for security. And the saddest part is that he starts to feel guilty for wanting to be happy. Because he was taught that his happiness always comes last. But this programming is not just cultural. It's ancestral. The myths, the fables, the fairy tales, they always place the man as the one who must save, protect, give. The woman, in turn, is the imprisoned princess. The fragile victim. The problem is that, in the real world, there is no dragon. What exists is an invisible contract where he sacrifices himself completely, waiting for a gratitude that never comes. Because the truth is that no one thanks someone who is just doing what is expected. And that is precisely why so many men despise themselves. Why so many men become bitter over time. Not from a lack of love, but from an excess of giving without return. Because they gave too much. Because they believed too much. And they woke up too late. Their soul was traded for a script. And now they no longer know where it is. When they look in the mirror, they see a familiar face. But inside, only the echo of what they once were. Only exhaustion. An existential fatigue that cannot be cured with a vacation or compliments. Society doesn't want you to notice this. Because a man who wakes up is a man who goes off script. Who stops supporting the system. Who starts asking dangerous questions. That's why men who question marriage are called immature. That's why those who decide to live free are labeled selfish. The system needs you to sacrifice with a smile and believe that it is noble, because if you stop, everything around you begins to crumble. Have you ever noticed how the word love is used as blackmail? If you loved me, you would do this. If you respected me, you wouldn't act like that. But you rarely hear, if I love you, I'll let you be who you are, because the truth is brutal. The love that most men receive is conditional. It's based on performance, utility, obedience. Did you lose your job? Did you get sick? Did you stop being interesting? The love evaporates, because it wasn't love. It was dependence disguised as affection. It was a silent contract where you were the provider. Not for the house, but for her stability. It was her emotional stability. The greatest tragedy is that many men only realize this too late, after years of bending their own desires. After sacrificing dreams in the name of a harmony that was never mutual, they think that if they try harder, they will be valued. That if they are kinder, more present, more helpful, she will notice. But this never happens, because the more you bend, the less she respects you. Because female respect, even if unconsciously, is guided by another logic, that of strength, independence, and scarcity, not submission. This is where the real power game comes in, the one no one taught you. The more you make her the center of your life, the less value you have in her eyes. Because, biologically, the man who bows is seen as weak. And weakness, in the female instinct, doesn't awaken protection, it awakens contempt. It's hard to hear this. But it's necessary, because while you continue to think you're being good, in reality, you're becoming invisible. Because she doesn't want someone who adores her. She wants someone she needs to win over. Schopenhauer said, all happiness is, in fact, the absence of suffering. And when we apply this to relationships, everything changes. The man who needs a woman to feel complete is already incomplete. He enters the relationship begging. He makes himself subservient. But the man who is whole, who is already at peace with his own solitude, chooses to be with someone. Not out of neediness, but out of abundance. And that choice changes everything, because now he is free. And because of that, he is valuable. Most men believe they can negotiate better terms by being more obedient. As if the solution were to please more, try harder, give more. But you don't negotiate with gravity, you don't argue with biology. The game only changes when you stop playing. When you stop begging for love. When you stop trying to prove your worth. And you start living so fully that someone else's presence isn't a necessity. It's a bonus. The awakened man understands one fundamental thing. It's not about hating women. It's about understanding how they work. And stopping the self-destruction of trying to be what they say they want. Because there is a chasm between what they verbalize and what they truly respond to. They say they want a sensitive, available, emotionally present man. But they admire a man who doesn't need them, who has a mission, who has boundaries, who knows how to say no with firmness. The man who doesn't bend, but opens himself up when he wants to, not when he is pressured. This isn't female malice. It's biology. Their minds were shaped over thousands of years to seek someone who carries value. And value, in instinctive psychology, is measured by scarcity. By power. By emotional independence. The man who gives himself up too easily awakens insecurity in them. Someone so available must have little value. Because deep down we all know. No one throws away what is rare. But what is abundant becomes part of the landscape. That's why the men who suffer the most in love are the ones who try the hardest. The ones who chase the most. The ones who show the most. Because they didn't realize that, in this game, being predictable is a crime. And being too constant is a sentence. A woman needs to imagine. She needs to miss you. She needs to look at the emptiness of your absence and wonder where you are. Because it's in that space that desire is born. Obsession. The pursuit. It's not about ignoring her. It's about not giving your whole self to someone who hasn't yet shown that she knows how to value fragments. The man who masters this art becomes magnetic. Not because he is arrogant, but because he is whole. He doesn't seek approval. He offers presence. He doesn't demand attention, but he awakens curiosity. He becomes what cannot be controlled. And that is exactly what makes him irresistible. He transforms the relationship into a mirror of his own strength. And in doing so, he reverses the game. Now she is the one who needs to earn him. Now she is the one who wonders, am I enough to enter his world? True masculine strength is not about dominating women. It's about not letting yourself be dominated by neediness. It's about looking inside and realizing that nothing is missing. That everything you need is already within you. And when you reach that point, love stops being an addiction and becomes a choice. A choice that only makes sense if it brings double the freedom and not a prison with perfume. Because the man who needs to beg for respect has already betrayed himself before he is even betrayed. The fatal mistake of most men is to place the woman at the center of gravity of their own life. They believe that by making her their priority, they are showing love. But what they don't realize is that this movement reveals, in the language of the female unconscious, that he no longer has anything orbiting around himself, that he does not have a greater mission, a personal journey, a reason to live that does not involve being validated by her. And that's where the enchantment dies. Because female desire does not grow on top of adoration. It grows on top of admiration. The moment you make a woman the sole source of your happiness, your masculine energy collapses. She senses, even if she can't explain it, that you are empty, that you need her to feel like someone. And no one respects someone who is begging to be loved. There may be pity. There may be affection. But there will never be fascination. And fascination is what keeps the game alive. It's what keeps her waking up in the middle of the night, thinking about you. Not the safe affection, but the untamable mystery. That's why the most desired men are not the ones who speak beautifully, nor the ones with a lot of money. They are the ones who are too busy living something greater than any relationship. They don't chase. They walk. And whoever wants to follow needs to earn the pace. They don't justify every choice. They communicate their decisions with the silence of someone who has conviction. They don't ask for approval. Because they have already approved of themselves long before any female gaze. And it is precisely this attitude that awakens the most primitive desire in a woman, to conquer what does not give in easily. What is too whole to be molded? What is present, but not dependent? And the paradox is that the less you need her, the more she feels attracted. Because, deep down, she wants to be chosen by someone who has options, not by someone who is desperate. The rare man is the one who offers what he doesn't need to offer, and because of that, every one of his gestures has value. The common man thinks he will earn respect by being submissive, overly attentive, available all the time. But the awakened man knows that in absence, presence is born. In scarcity, value is born. In silence, what really matters is heard. He doesn't play to win approval. He lives so completely that any relationship only makes sense if it amplifies that fullness. And that's why he is free, because he doesn't need to, he chooses. Most men enter a relationship hoping to find an emotional home, a refuge, someone who sees him, understands him, and loves him as he is. But this dream is childish. It's an emotional inheritance from boys who were not taught to be self-sufficient, because adult love is not blind devotion, it's an alliance between two complete consciousnesses. And the naked truth is that almost no one wants this type of relationship, because it requires inner effort and requires that you don't need the other person, in order to then be able to truly love them. The idea that marriage will bring emotional fulfillment is one of the best told lies of modern civilization. It is a farce sold by religions, romantic comedies, and margarine commercials. The reality is much colder. Marriage, as it is structured today, is a contract. And like any contract, it exists to protect interests. Whoever enters with emotion, leaves losing. Whoever enters with lucidity, maintains control. And most men enter with an heart that is too open and eyes that are too closed. That's why so many end up destroyed. Because they didn't know they were entering a game where the other side already knew all the cards. They thought it was love, that it was surrender, that it was forever. But the woman knew it was a performance, that it was selection, that it was a strategy. And when she realizes she has already extracted everything she could, she leaves. Not with pain, but with relief. Because for her, everything was always a matter of cost-benefit. Not of poetry, not of promises. The awakened man looks at all this and doesn't feel anger. He feels clarity. He understands that love is not a guarantee. It's a daily choice. That desire is not spontaneous. It is nourished by distance, admiration, and respect. He stops negotiating his soul for crumbs of affection. He stops convincing himself that he needs to deserve something that, in truth, only has value if it is offered freely. And, most importantly, he stops hiding behind childish fantasies. He kills the boy who begged for love and gives birth to the man who chooses love with consciousness. And perhaps this is the great liberation. To realize that you no longer need to bend to be loved. That you no longer need to dilute yourself to be accepted. That you no longer need to suffer to be valued. When this sinks in, the game changes. Because now, you no longer kneel before the other person's desire. You observe it. And you decide with calmness and firmness whether it is worthy of your presence. Whether it expands or imprisons. And if it doesn't expand, you get up and leave. Without drama. Without longing. Just with dignity. It's not about abandoning love. It's about abandoning the illusion. The illusion that being good is enough. That giving yourself completely guarantees reciprocity. That constant sacrifice will be rewarded with loyalty and gratitude. Wake up. The world doesn't work that way. Relationships are not sanctuaries. They are mirrors. And if you enter broken, you'll be left with the shards reflected in every gesture of contempt. In every manipulative silence. In every kiss that demands more than it gives. You were not made to crawl for crumbs of respect. Nor to negotiate your essence in exchange for a little companionship. The awakened man understands. Everything given with desperation comes back as humiliation. And everything offered with firmness attracts reverence. The problem is that they taught you to confuse love with submission. To wear emotional shackles as if they were medals. To call the place where your soul is being silently murdered a home. From now on, your greatest mission is not to find someone who loves you. It's to become someone who doesn't abandon himself. Who doesn't betray himself. Who doesn't fade away to fit into someone else's script. When you understand this, something changes deep in your chest. You stop chasing. You stop explaining. You stop begging. And you start walking. In the opposite direction of the noise. In the direction of your own voice. And the most curious thing is that at that exact moment, the world begins to look at you differently. Because you've become rare. Because you've become dangerous. Because you've become whole. Freedom does not reside at the end of a relationship. It resides at the end of dependence. It resides in the moment you realize that true love, the one that doesn't diminish you, doesn't crush you, doesn't trap you, doesn't bring you solitude. After the fall. After the break with everything that kept you artificially safe. It's there, among the rubble of your former self, that you finally find what no relationship can give you, your own sovereignty. And if today you are standing, even while carrying wounds that no one sees, know this. You don't need permission to be free. You don't need validation to move forward. The choice is yours. And it always has been. Will you continue to live on your knees, calling it love? Or will you finally raise your head and walk out of the cave? Because in the end, the question that will echo when everything falls silent is not whether she loved you, it's, do you still recognize yourself in the mirror? May that question resonate in your heart. Until next time. And if this message touched your heart in any way, help me share it with more people. Together, let's reach the maximum number of likes on this video. I promise you, wherever I am, I will be infinitely grateful for this simple gesture. And I guarantee it will come back to you in the form of blessings, many blessings in your life. With that in mind, I'm sure you'll love the next video. So subscribe to the channel right now, and if you can, make a donation to help us continue this work. Activate the bell and don't miss anything. I'll be waiting for you there. It's full of discoveries like this. And I guarantee that in just 5 seconds, you can find revelations that will completely transform your way of living. And before I finish, I really want to know your opinion in the comments. How did you feel when you heard all this? How have you been seeking your inner peace lately? Your voice is so precious to me and I am very excited to read your thoughts. Let's continue this journey of self-discovery together. Because it's just beginning. See you soon.